DLC.
Yeah! When that speak and spell voice pops in, you know it's time to begin. And wherever you are, whenever you are, and however you happen to be listening, we're so glad you've chosen to tune in to
DLC.
A little early that time. A little late that time. Especially if you are one of our geeks and steaks using this podcast to power you through a workout or a run. Or hey, maybe you're doing chores. Maybe you're walking the dog. Whatever the case, we're going to be in your ear holes for 90 plus minutes of gaming goodness because DLC is your downloadable commentary for the week, delivered the way we love it to be. And that is completely free thanks to our patrons over at patreon.com/DLCpod. They're bringing the show to you, making the show possible by supporting us. And in return, they get cool stuff, including ad-free episodes, the video version of the show on demand, and an entire bonus show called Paid DLC, which we record on Wednesdays with our periodic awesome third chair, Lana Bashinsky. Get in on that. Check it out. Patreon.com/DLCpod. The DLC, of course, the show all about games and their many forms, games played on desktops, laptops, and consoles. Also games that involve dice, luck, and cardboard. I'm your host, Jeff Cannata, the spell with 2 N's and 1 T, and I'm joined, as always, by my friend / co-host / nemesis, the guy who's still digesting those Dodger dogs, Mr. Christian Spicer. Hello, Christian.
Congrats on your 4th championship, Jeff. You had a big week. Also,
such a wonderful, dude, so much fun. Stayed up with my son way past his bedtime watching the basketball game. What a memory. Beautiful. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say to all the developers out there, thank you for saving your big news for Tuesday as we were recording this Monday morning. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Also, happy belated Father's Day to fathers and father figures listening, and Jeff, to you. And happy Juneteenth to everyone as we were recording this here on Juneteenth, celebrated here in the United States.
Indeed. Big weeks. And thanks everybody for the cool feedback about our Summer of Games coverage. We appreciate it. We'll continue to evolve that as we go forward, but we appreciate that. We got lots more to talk about. The news continues. There were more conferences, more virtual conferences, more news to discuss, and lots of big games coming out. One of Christian's most anticipated games of the entire year. We'll talk all about it, but we have, ladies and gentlemen, a fantastic guest to do that with. You know, the DLC always stands for your downloadable Cannata and your downloadable Christian. But this week, I'm so excited because for the first time, DLC stands for Delving Long into the Cosmos. Because from the Into the Aether podcast, we have podcaster extraordinaire Brendon Bigley joining us for the first time. Hey, Brendon.
Hey, so wonderful to be here. Thank you guys so much. I've been listening to the show since it started, so this is pretty surreal. So stoked to be here. Thank you.
Well, that is such a compliment. I appreciate you listening. We are fans of what you do online. This is a long time in coming. I know we've been wanting to get you on the show for a long time. So
yeah, I appreciate it.
It's going to be awesome. We got tons to talk about. So let's jump in and start the show the way we always do, with Story of the Week.
Story of the week, it's the story of the week. Story of the week, it's the story of the week.
Story of the Week is the part of the show where we make our case for the most important stories that happen in the world of games this week. You can always submit stories for our consideration by sending us an email to dlcfeedback@gmail.com. That's also where you can send comments or questions, your own reviews, if you'd like to hear us talk about something that perhaps we haven't played. You can send a review, dlcfeedback@gmail.com. Also, 2 awesome communities you can join. One is on our subreddit, 5x5dlc.reddit.com. The other, our Discord, which is 5x5dlc on Discord as well. Awesome threads there, great folks in both places. Urge you to take part in the community. But Brendon, you are our guest, so you get first pick of stories. What would you consider to be your story of the week?
Man, there's so much stuff in here. I love that we're still like full steam ahead in Summer of Games. It's really just a really exciting time to be doing this specifically. And the thing that I think has been almost like an it's been rumored for so long that it was an open secret, but I truly didn't believe it until the words came out of a man's mouth on a live stream. Was Dragon's Dogma 2 is in production and is real. This
is it? Is it still, Brendon?
We'll see. He had a shirt made up at least.
Yeah.
No tattoo, though.
Hey,
there was no tattoo.
No
shirts,
tattoo. That's a great point.
Shirts never lie, you guys. If it's on a shirt, it has to be true. I am, in fact, with stupid.
Yeah, Dragon's Dogma is a game I truly love. I can't believe it exists. It's almost like, out of a different universe where just game development and game ideas just went in a completely different direction. Kind of like this super group of developers coming from Devil May Cry and Monster Hunter, taking inspiration from Bethesda, what they were doing with Elder Scrolls and Fallout, and what FromSoft was doing with Dark Souls. And I was like, what if we just put all that in one game? Which is an idea that
someone's like Monster Hunter, a Monster Hunter flyby, just a little.
Pretty much.
Why not? Sure, why not? What else are we going to put in here? I don't know. What about Street Fighter? That would never work. Maybe Street.
Maybe. Who knows? Who knows what Dragon's Dogma 2 could possibly be? But this is a game that I think has flown under the radar for so long, and I think was a cult classic for such a long time. But due to, I would say, Capcom's actually pretty stellar game preservation efforts with this game in particular, has just continued porting it forward onto new consoles over and over and over again, and has kept it so relevant that it's gone past being a cult classic. And it's now just a classic. And I think that's really, really exciting to see that long-standing effort rewarded with enough interest to throw a sequel into development. So as a person who thinks that game is absolutely incredible, I'm very, very excited and still can't believe this is real.
Yeah. I mean, that game came out, Dragon's Dogma, the original, came out 2012, which, Christian, is 10 years ago. I don't know if you're aware of that.
5 years ago.
That is 10 years ago.
A couple months ago.
It was yesterday. I just downloaded it. Yeah, brand new game.
When you say 2012, I don't think 10 years ago. That's not the number that pops into my head of how long ago that was. But that has been a decade.
Well, when you say 2001, you think this person is now drinking and is 21 years old. That's what you think about that also, right?
Yeah, born in 2021? No. Or born in 2001? I remember talking about Dragon's Dogma on Weekend Confirmed. I mean, that's how long ago that was. And I never fell in love with this game the way Brendon sounds like you have, and so many others have. But it is cool. I do remember it being so different and unique at the time. I wonder if it'll still a sequel will still feel that way, as open world games have really kind of taken over and progressed so much, and the technology around them has. That this game, Dragon's Dogma, the first one, felt like it was doing so many interesting, unique, forward-thinking things, and I don't know if that is still the case. It also occurs to me, Brendon, I want to get your feedback on this. This is one of those very strange announcements where it's like, hey, we're doing this. That's it. That's the entire announcement. Like, what?
That's how I am with half of my projects. Hey, I'm going to do this.
So, the creator's endeavor is announcing things. Yeah,
this is my approach to chores with my wife. Honey, I'm fixing the fence. 2 years later, have you fixed the fence? We have delayed that project indefinitely
because of supply chain issues and
Q3
regret to inform you that in order to give you the fence that would live up to our expectations, I have decided to delay this project.
A delayed fence is always good, Jeff.
We started work on the fence for the next house because this house is now last gen's house. We need new fence for new house.
Anyway, do you think? I mean, it's great to know that this is happening, right? I mean, but we've seen so many of these announcements where it's like, it's happening. There is a Beyond Good and Evil 2 happening, ladies and gentlemen. That kind of thing. Would you have preferred they wait until they actually have something to show? Or is it's just cool knowing that this is percolating and is many years off?
I think in almost every single situation, I would rather see something from the game. Dragon's Dogma 2 is the one exception. Specifically, I think Dragon's Dogma is weirdly kind of in the zeitgeist right now, also because I would say the biggest game of the year still is Elden Ring. And Dragon's Dogma, weirdly enough, is the closest analog to Elden Ring that I've ever played.
Yeah.
It was shocking making my way through that game and thinking, wow, this is like they just took Dragon's Dogma and refined so many of those ideas and actually fit it into the FromSoft engine. I am excited for Dragon's Dogma 2 because I'm sure it's just going to beg for those comparisons, which I think will bring maybe a larger audience to that because Dragon's Dogma is a game that keeps coming up as Elden Ring gets bigger and bigger. So maybe it'll get more people to play the first one. There's actually a report, I think, that came out this morning or yesterday that said that the Steam player count for Dragon's Dogma hit its peak yesterday, which is pretty wild. So it means a lot of people are going back. Unfortunately, that peak is like 20,000 people total. So like still kind of, flying under the radar, but pretty exciting that more people are checking that game out. And I think this is one of those games that I am just cool to see somebody's working on it.
Yeah.
Have you?
And that's proof that those announcements move the needle. You know, it's like
Totally.
you got people to play the first game more, so it does
helps
do
that it's
something.
super accessible. It helps that it's like on Switch and on modern consoles. That's where I played. I played it on Switch, and it runs great.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask, how long ago have you revisited this game? And like, I'm curious because like Skyrim, I feel like is a game that everybody revisits all the time, or GTA 5. Like there are certain forever ported Resident Evil 4, where it's like,
Right.
oh, I've probably played this recently. Dragon's Dogma, I have not touched in 10 years. And is it clunky? Is it modern? Does Dragon's Dogma 2 need to shake up the formula, or could it be more Dragon's Dogma that looks prettier and still be ahead of its time, or has its time caught up with it by now?
I think the thing about Dragon's Dogma that's so fascinating to me, and this is kind of the thing with a lot of, I would say, big Capcom projects, is that it is so campy that the clunkiness is almost part of its design in a way. You know, the game doesn't really tell you a whole lot when you play it. To answer your question first, I played it when it came out on Switch, and I revisited it after Elden Ring because I was like, man, these two things are firing the same synapses. I really need to compare these two. And had a really good time with it. The thing about Dragon's Dogma that's so fascinating to me and will be forever is just how wildly open it is, and how the pawn system, which, just to do it very quickly, you're able to download essentially AI players that have adventured with other players. So when you download somebody else's pawn and they're part of your party, they'll just, if they've done a quest that you're doing, tell you how to get there. They'll say, oh, I know a shortcut around here, or hey, if we go along this coast for a while, we can find this hidden cave, or whatever. And you just get all of these really interesting generative storytelling moments that can only exist because other people are playing them. And what I'm fascinated by with the announcement of Dragon's Dogma 2 is how much they're going to lean into that online play, how much they're going to kind of lean into that pawn system, and see if we can use more modern internet technology to push this game forward. I feel like that is the like easy kind of low hanging fruit thing for the sequel is how do you interact with other players in a even more meaningful way than in the first game.
Yeah,
You write a note that's kind of obscene, like a pun, obscene
and then you
joke.
can upvote it.
Well,
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I never really put that together.
Figured it out.
It does feel like the next, or the predecessor to that kind of similar idea from the From Software games. I'm sure I'm not the only person to. I'm sure I'm late to that observation, but it is. It does. I do make that connection now. It's interesting how that kind of similar feel that you get from reading messages in From Software games.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's a fascinating game. It shouldn't exist, but it does, and I'm glad it does. And I love revisiting it, and I love telling people to play it.
All right. Well, Dragon's Dogma 2. Hopefully, we'll see it in the next several years. Well, who knows how long it'll take to get to us? Yeah, next decade. Christian Spicer, what is your story of the week?
Man, there's some juicy stuff. I just want to mention, I don't want to discuss this right now because not everything has been revealed, but I want to put on people's radar that the Xbox Summer Game Demo Fest starts this week, next week, depending on when you're listening to this, 21st.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. So like right now, perhaps, as you're listening to this. So there's going to be potentially some great games there. Go and check it out. It's a great way for folks to see some of the especially smaller games that have been shown and talked about during the summer of games.
Does it need to happen right at the same time as the Next Fest, the Steam Next Fest, which is like it bumps up right. We had last week was Next Fest. This week's Xbox. It's like
Yes, Jeff,
maybe
it does.
spread it out a little bit. I don't know.
No, it needs to happen right now, contractually,
Right.
when there
All
are
right.
not a lot of games to play. Okay.
Okay.
There just
All right.
needs to.
No, I like it. We'll talk a lot about it next week, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm very excited for that. I'll just say, last year, one of my favorite games of the year was released as a demo during that event. It was Lake, which I would not have checked out were not for that partnership between Summer Games Fest and ID at Xbox. So I'm very much looking forward to checking that stuff out. I think it's gonna be
Right on.
Yeah,
awesome.
same for Tunic. I was like, I
yeah.
started and I was like, I'm going to quit this demo and instantly put this on the top of my list for when it comes out. I've seen enough. I love it. I do not want to play anymore right now. My story of the week, and of which I said there are many fascinating things, but the thing I want to talk about with you two is we've learned more information about Gran Turismo, the movie. I love cars. Jeff, I sent you some YouTube videos that are like super well produced about cars, or it's just like, this is fascinating production, and felt like this person was doing something that a lot of folks don't necessarily do when it comes to general reviews and how could that be applied to games and blah, 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 blah. And I really liked the Need for Speed movie. It certainly had its flaws, but it gave us Michael Keaton back before Michael Keaton was back. And it gave us real, there were shells, but like real, not CG cars being blown up, which I always think is exciting. And so when Sony announced in their plethora of transitioning to expanding their media empire to tap into video games as movies and TV shows, one of the things that was also mentioned was the Gran Turismo movie. You know, that third-person action single-player game, Gran Turismo, that everybody, you know, the story of the 2023 Nissan Z going from a 400 horsepower twin turbo car that's a little too heavy for its frame on a repurposed 11-year-old 340Z frame, finding a way to shed its father's roots. And, you know,
Well, we joked about that maybe the Gran Turismo movie should be a documentary, you know, like a very slow paced, contemplative documentary about, you know, the history of cars and set in a cafe, you know.
I love that.
We're actually not that far off, because it sounds like the
maybe?
actual movie they're making is going to be based on a true story.
right. So the information we're getting out about it is that it seems like it's maybe still working on the version of the movie that they were working on a long time ago, which is talking about Lucas Ordonez, who was a real Gran Turismo player and won the 2009 GT Academy, which was the thing that a Gran Turismo supported tournament where it was kind of showing off the sim chops of GT, where you could learn to play on a rig, and some people even on controllers, and Academy has continued. But Lucas became a real racer, and it's kind of this, you know, oh God, why am I blanking on? Not Last Starfighter?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
The
Last
Last
Starfighter.
Mhm.
It's like a real version of that. Like, person
Yeah.
good at video game recruited to do real thing. The thing that I find interesting is if that is the story, which it seems like it's the story they're telling.
Well, before you say that, though,
Yeah.
not the only kid who has done that. So it's not 100% confirmed that it is this Lucas Ordonez guy. It could be one of several that have done this. So we don't know for sure it's Lucas, but it's
Right.
crazy that that's not a one-off fluke thing. It's kind of a path into racing, like a legit
Yes.
path into racing.
Yes, I mean, it's not the simmiest of sim games. So certainly someone listening right now screaming at us like, X game is more of a sim game than GT. You're right. It is. It's not the most sim game, but it is real tracks, and it's a way to learn lines and get that, play with the wheel and get that experience. But it's also to be directed by Neil Blomkamp, who is Chappie and District
really?
9.
That's the first one you're going to is Chappie?
No,
Way to
that's
throw the
first
dude
one
under the bus.
That's so you got to go recent releases.
Yeah.
Like,
I
dude
guess.
started on top of the bus, and dude
Yes.
has fallen under the bus.
Didn't he? What was the Elysium movie? Wasn't it called Elysium?
It was called Elysium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
with
also
Was that
Matt
from
under
Damon.
the
Chappie?
bus.
Wasn't that post Chappie, or is that pre Chappie?
Do you think that's climbing back onto the bus?
I think it's a better movie than Chappie was. Chappie
Okay,
is
that's not
We have a
terrible.
full spectrum of possibility space that Neil Blomkamp exists
Indeed.
within.
Indeed.
Well, I think it's an interesting choice. Part of me is like, oh, that makes sense if they're going for this social network, docudrama style thing, because his films, District 9 and Chappie, kind of have that. Elysium didn't, but kind of have that approach of like, I'm in the Cloverfield-esque, cameras
handheld,
dirty and
stuff,
stuff. But also
cinema verite. Yeah.
Yes, but also his stuff is usually pretty sci-fi, and Gran Turismo is not. It's like, this is the actual strut brace. We scanned, we took apart these Fox shocks and scanned them digitally, and we actually drank the lubricant that was used so we could feel what the car feels like.
That's not
on the inside.
Not a good idea. Kids, don't listen to that part. The interesting thing to me about this movie is that, in contrast to nearly every IP-based movie I can think of, but I could be wrong. You guys could come up with another one. This is, it doesn't seem to be the fact that this is attempting to give you the experience of playing the game as a movie, right? It's not trying to, Halo series, trying to make you feel like what it would be like to see Halo in real life. This feels like, no, the idea that it's based on the Gran Turismo franchise isn't to give you a sense of what it's like to play Gran Turismo. It's because this person played Gran Turismo and got to do something in life because of it. So it's more
Rocky
like
story,
it's,
right?
It's an actual movie about a story. It's not a movie about a video game. It's a movie about this story that just involves the video game, right?
Yeah, this is a significantly more interesting concept to me than, recent PlayStation Studios film Uncharted, for example, which is taking all of those games and smashing them into one movie inexplicably. This being about the video game and not the story of the video game, of which there really isn't one anyway. So, whatever. I could see this, feeling a lot like a Ford v Ferrari or like a Rush kind of film, which I think is actually... that's kind of really exciting to me, because I find that a lot of video game adaptations say, oh, wow, video games are getting so cinematic. Isn't that so cool? What would happen if we removed the interactive element? Well, the answer is that it's kind of boring, unfortunately. So I think this is a much cleaner approach. I can't believe it, but the Gran Turismo movie is, I think, maybe our best shot at getting like a pretty good video game adaptation.
I'm very encouraged by this as well. I agree with you. Those are great references. Ford v Ferrari, not a movie I loved, but the concept of it is cool. It works cinematically. And I think
also We Are Marshall. Remember the Titans? Like there is a pedigree.
It's the rookie meets Ford v Ferrari, right? It's the little Chappie. Kid can do it. Everybody.
Honestly, it's the Sandlot, maybe.
Sandlot or the Wizard, right? Little kid joins a video game tournament. Makes good. I'm ready for this. August 11th, 2023 is evidently the release date, which, weird that we have release dates for things that probably haven't started shooting yet,
And still, I can't say it. Polyphony Digital will find a way to delay the movie as well. They will find a way. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
But I'm excited.
I still believe in Neil Blomkamp. I for all his misses, the guy has a visual sense that is really interesting and
totally
cool. And I think hopefully this has a really great script attached to it, and it'll be a good movie. So tune in a year from now when we will be talking about a month from then going to see the movie.
Mark it on your calendars, everybody. A year from now and a month from then.
Can't wait to come back and talk about the launch trailer.
Yeah, exactly. All right. See, you guys have left me what I think is undisputably the biggest story of the week, which is the Final Fantasy VII 25th anniversary stream, which had some actual juicy reveals in it. It was all based around Final Fantasy VII's 25th anniversary, as you may have surmised from the title. And they took that opportunity to announce the next in what has now been officially deemed a trilogy of Final Fantasy VII remakes. So that one game that we all play, well, I won't speak for everybody, but the olds, we played it back in the day. Now spawning 3 games. The one we all played last year, a couple years ago, Final Fantasy Remake, will be followed up by Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and one final game which hasn't been titled, but I guess will be something. And Rebirth will be launching next winter on PlayStation 5. We don't know. We got a little teaser trailer about it. It's the next chapter of the Final Fantasy VII saga. I enjoyed Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I think this one's going to be more goodness. We'll see if it actually makes it to next winter. But it's not the only bit of Final Fantasy VII news that was revealed. Crisis Core, which was the old PSP game that really never made it outside of the PSP ecosystem, but a lot of people loved it. I never played that game, but a lot of people loved Crisis Core, rank it among the better Final Fantasy games. But, you know, PSP, not a hugely successful console. Not a lot of people got to play it. Now is coming this winter to PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series, Xbox One, Steam, and Switch. So it's getting a remaster from the PSP original, and then going to basically every platform you can imagine. And then Final Fantasy VII Remake, the first of that trilogy of remakes, Intergrade, which is what they're calling this sort of, glammed up version, is coming to PC, right? It came to PC the day that it was announced. So it's on Steam and works on Steam Deck, which is it's a cool thing to be pointed out in the middle of that presentation as well. So Brendon, I want to throw it to you. Are you a Final Fantasy VII fan? Did you play the remake? Are you excited for more? Are you excited that it's going to be a trilogy?
Yeah, my history over the past couple of years has been kind of catching up on the history of JRPGs. I just kind of didn't play them growing up, but my co-host on my own podcast is a huge fan, grew up playing them, really has a strong affinity for them. So I was like, I gotta check out your childhood. So I've been playing through all that stuff.
I went to his house, got the box down from the attic, and
hung out with his parents, his dog, talked to his dog about Final Fantasy. I have had a really good time going back and checking all that stuff out. And Final Fantasy VII Remake always seemed to me before launch like the one that I was going to love the most, and it very much was when it dropped. I played enough of Final Fantasy VII, the original, to encompass the story of what they had in Remake, and now I'm going to go back and finish the original, which will be fun. But that having been said, Remake is the only Final Fantasy game that I've actually finished. I've actually rolled credits on. I thought it was so interesting. It's so cool narratively, and I don't want to say too much for spoiler reasons, obviously, but I just think it's very interested in the history of Final Fantasy VII and is very curious about how to push that narrative forwards into the future with the context that we all have about the many things that game changed about what can happen narratively in a video game. So I am very excited about Rebirth, as it's called. I have no idea what the third one's going to be called. Maybe Remix? I don't know. But that having been said, that trailer looked very Zack heavy, Zack being the protagonist of Crisis Core. Yeah. So I'm wondering if the reveal and remake of Crisis Core is kind of to prime people for what is going to be kind of a swerve of that story, potentially for Rebirth is interesting. And one other thing that they announced during this event that I thought was really fascinating is, or continued to announce, I think they said it's coming this year, or betas this year, is a mobile game that they're releasing called Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, which is a retelling of every piece of Final Fantasy lore all at once. So 7, the movie Advent Children, Crisis Core, maybe even Remake, Dirge of Cerberus, all of this stuff that's been
all on your phone.
All on your phone. It kind of plays, it seems like the original Final Fantasy VII. You have kind of chibi characters running around when you're in battle. It honestly looks like Remake. And I feel like that game exists solely to just prepare people who didn't play all of this peripheral content for what they're going to do with Remake parts 2 and 3, which I think is a really cool way of just preparing people for that if you're not going to, take Dirge of Cerberus and put it on the Switch or something.
Yeah, right. Remake, Rebirth. My understanding is the third one will let you purchase housing in the game, and it'll be called Remax.
I mean, it's one game per disc, right? I know that's not exactly how they're breaking it up, but the OG PlayStation 1 game was 3 discs, so it kind of has this lineage to be 3 things. I do wonder if by the time we get to the third game, which I mean, assuming, which, Jeff will tell us it will be delayed, but assuming they hit these kind of internal dates, then maybe not. But otherwise, I feel like by the time we get the third game, they will already again be remaking the first one. Like it's just Final Fantasy VII in perpetuity. I am very curious where the story goes, because Final Fantasy VII, I think for a lot of folks, even people who haven't played it but grew up post Final Fantasy VII, it is a meme of sorts, right? Like it is a known quantity of this thing that happens in the game that I will be vague about for the folks who maybe don't know it. And I am curious how many of those story beats continue to be swerves. And I do think it's fascinating that Square, who for a long time has kind of just trotted things back out, to put it one way, is taking such a fresh approach with one of their most beloved games and also calling it Final Fantasy VII. Yes, it has the little subtitle after that, but this isn't Final Fantasy VII 2114 X23 Reimagine, the retelling of the story you thought you knew. Like they're coming at it from, this is Final Fantasy VII, and we're going to change things and dive longer into certain story elements that were just passing moments in the first game. And I think it's a really cool approach. And then I'm really excited to see more of what the game looks like if they are targeting kind of strictly now current gen consoles in a way. Because the first Final Fantasy VII remake looked great, but there's always room for it to look greater.
Yeah. If you play Intergrade on a modern console on the current generation, you kind of get a glimpse at what the next one could look like. And it's glorious. I'll say that much. It's really, really pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. Christian, did you ever play Crisis Core on a PSP? I know you're a big PSP guy.
Very little. Yes, I definitely, because the hype consumed me and I bought it and played it and I have no memory of it. I definitely didn't roll credits in it. The PSP for me was a graveyard of JRPGs where I'd be like, oh, I will definitely play all of this one. And then I never finished it and I went back to Wipeout Pure or something.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I never touched it. I mean, I had a PSP, but I never played that game. So I'm curious, maybe check that out. But I know it's very highly regarded by fans. So
yeah, I think one of my biggest possible concerns with this is that it does kind of look a little bit too inwards and is a little bit too focused on swerving what people maybe know about the original. Because I feel like the original just continues to stay relevant, just because strong undertones of environmental collapse and anti-capitalist and anti-work and stuff that is like becoming more and more the forefront of daily news.
Sure.
And I wonder if you take the focus off of those strong thematic undertones of the game, if it loses some of its charm. But I don't know. I loved Remake Part 1, so I'm on board.
Well, it is odd if the goal is to subvert expectations that you're doing that to something that is 30 years old. I'm guessing that the vast majority of the audience for these games have never played the originals. So it's an odd thing to play on that so heavily, but I think a lot of people that never played the first one, the originals, still are enjoying it. So I think they're doing it right. All right. Well, we got lots of games to talk about, so let's get right into that. But first, I want to thank our sponsor, which is Squarespace. Squarespace. That was a weird one. But Squarespace is sponsored the show for a long time. Really proud to tell you about them. It's the all-in-one platform for building your brand and growing your business online. You can have a beautiful website that lets you stand out, lets you engage with your audience, and sell anything, products that you create, content that you create, even your time, easily monetized, easily sold, easily built into a business using Squarespace. Squarespace makes it so easy for creators to monetize their content and their expertise in a way that fits their brand. They have member areas so you can unlock a new revenue stream for your business and free up time in your schedule by selling access to gated content like videos, online courses, or even newsletters. And if you're creating video, you can create it in their pro level video studio. The Squarespace Video Studio app helps you make and share engaging videos to tell your story, to grow your audience, and to drive sales. and you can sell your products on an online store. It's so easy to build it with the Squarespace tool set. Whether you sell physical or digital products, Squarespace has the tools that you need to start selling online. It's so easy. Plus, you get analytics, insights to help grow your business. It's all optimized for mobile right out of the box. It's so easy. Check it out. Head over to squarespace.com/Jeff sent me. You'll get a free trial, and you can have fun just messing with it, making your website, build it from the ground up, or start with one of their beautiful templates. See how easy their tools are to use. And then when you're ready to launch your website, that's the only point at which you pay. You can use our offer code, Jeff sent me, JEFFSENTME, all one word, and you'll save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. I've used squarespace.com/Jeff sent me to buy domains for a long time now. It's a really, really cool front end for buying domains. They have over 200 extensions. It's really simple. They'll suggest options for you. It's a great front end for buying domains. So simple. Check it out. Squarespace.com/Jeff sent me. Get you that free trial. And then when you're ready to launch, use that promo code Jeff sent me for 10% off.
Ooh, what you playing this week? Tell us. Ooh, what you playing this week? Tell us on the playlist.
All right, it's time to jump into the games that we have been playing, and there are a bunch. But let's start with probably the biggest marquee release of the week, and that is a game Christian has been chomping at the bit to play. All three of us have played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, the retro throwback, side-scrolling 2D pixel art brawler. Brendon, were you a fan of TMNT as a kid? Were you throwing quarters in the machine like the rest of us?
I'm in this weird space where I was in like the 3 to 5 year gap where for some reason Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had fallen out of vogue. So everyone before me and everyone after me loves Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and all I got was like Street Sharks and all of the many other ripoffs.
That's funny.
Which is a little bit of a bummer, but I did grow up like in the arcade playing the arcade game. So I was very much looking forward to this just to kind of get a little bit of that back in my life.
And what do you think?
It's incredible. I mean, it's so good. I was really looking forward to it, and I think the thing about it that really strikes me every time I sit down to play it is it's just so joyful. It's just such a joyful experience. The ability to hop into and out of online matches with, friends or even just randos online is so simple and so easy. It's amazing how quick you can just, hover over a level, press a button, and then hop into somebody else's match and just like fill in that one empty slot that they have and just finish out a level with them. It's so fun to jump into and out of. And I just find like mechanically, it feels so tight and exactly the way you remember that game feeling in the arcade machine. I really am stoked about it.
It is really, really well made. And you can tell, I mean, it does feel like a labor of love, but it's interesting to me how just the subtle difference of making a game that's meant to feel like an old stand-up arcade experience, but is very much consciously made for the home experience, allows them to sort of honor what it felt like to walk into an arcade, plunk a quarter in, and start playing that pick up and play, immediate fun, but have sort of a level of depth and just sort of layers of content, and it winks to you and so much fun stuff packed in that you would never really find in an arcade experience, because those arcade experiences were conscious about the fact that you're really going to be playing it for minutes at a time, right? It's going to be these short bursts of fun. And it does feel like this game, while it delivers short bursts of fun, is also very conscious of the fact that you're going to be playing it for longer stretches, and you're going to have time to sort of settle in with this game. And so there's lots of really fun tidbits, just Easter eggs, and it kind of a relationship that it generates with the player that's very different than the old arcade was. Am I crazy to say that, Christian?
No, I think you're right. I mean, I think those old arcade games, very much were meant to steal your quarters and were very difficult at times. And there were cheap moves that you couldn't get out of.
Right.
And with Shredder's Revenge, the way they've finessed the combat, and you have things like invincibility frames on your rolls and almost a roll cancel. It doesn't quite cancel, but you can, change direction of it with what your attack is, and the explained variations of air attacks and combos, and how you can kind of link all of those things together. It creates a more modern brawler in a way that, in fact, some of the challenges for levels are to complete it without getting hit, which I think is a kind of a testament to the game design and a little bit of a flex, saying, yeah, you can play through this cleanly. And in an arcade game, as much as I love them, and I'm very excited about that Cowabunga collection, you can't. There's no way you're getting through Turtles in Time, the arcade game, without getting hit. There's just no, like, an enemy will appear behind you and hit you. Like, that's literally what it comes in, and it reaches into your pocket and takes a quarter, and then gives you the bird while inverted, and which is mixing franchises. But what Shredder's Revenge does in terms of creating that feel of the arcade game, or that arcade experience, while modernizing it, is kind of like the gameplay version, Jeff, of what we've talked about for graphics before, where it's like, this, they say they've updated the graphics, but this just looks like how I remember Halo looking.
Yeah, it plays how you remember it in this case.
It plays how an arcade game, that feeling. I was talking to a friend, texting with our friend Kyle, and he was telling me about that online experience that Brendon was talking about, of how even that experience of jumping into somebody's game is so reminiscent of quartering up at an arcade, where you'd walk into the arcade and you'd see, three bozos playing, and you'd be like, do I want to play with those bozos? Mikey's open, I'll go play. And you pop in, you just jump into the middle of their level, the middle of the game. You won't hurt their experience. It's not like you can go in and hurt and take out Donatello and like neg them or spam, or at worst you eat the pizza when you're not supposed to, and it's like, Mikey keeps eating the pizzas. But otherwise it's a collaborative experience that when you have more people on the arcade, the better it is. And I think Shredder's Revenge really captures that as well, with just going in and replaying those levels. It's phenomenal. It is so fun. And I think in a year of Elden Ring, which is phenomenal, but in a year of Elden Ring, it's nice to have a game that's just like ice cream, like there's
Cotton
like
candy.
there's like the 8-course chef's tasting menu, where like half of the things, when they tell you what it is, you're like, I'm not going to like this. This sounds awful. Then you taste it and you're like, this is incredible. And then there's like, and for dessert, sugar in your mouth.
Yeah, you don't need a refined palate to enjoy Shredder's Revenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then it
just
also
goofy fun.
it holds that 80s era cartoon and arcade games in high esteem, right? It's not trying to mock them or make you feel dumb if you liked it. It's not that ironic, like, you used to like this, idiot, approach. The characters that make cameos in it, the bosses, the way it uses pretty much every iconic character from that cartoon run, and it does it in beautiful pixel art, and it has so many of those moments from the arcade games that bring a smile to your face, falling into the sewer, getting run over by a car, throwing a foot soldier into the screen. All of those things that capture the feeling and hold it in reverence, and not even in a Last Skywalker, or whatever that movie was called, Episode 9 approach of like, look, it's the thing you love. We did the thing you love, and like with not much emotion to it. This, I feel like, has the passion and the celebration of what that franchise is.
Yeah, you see it in every corner, right? You see it like in every screen that you show up on. One of the first levels, you roll into a news studio, and you see a bunch of the enemies like typing up news stories before they realize you're there, and then jump out and attack. Like, every moment is filled with a visual gag, or filled with some kind of incredible thing that you can find if you just like punch the right light at the right time or something. And it feels so much like mastering an arcade game in a way that I really, really, really love. I think another thing that really strikes me about this game And I think the reason why they're able to have challenges like, hey, you can play this whole level without getting hit, and if you do, you win a thing, is that the levels are really short. They're like pretty bite-sized. I agree with you, Jeff. They do want you to play for longer periods of time, and it's definitely built with that in mind. And I think part of that, you don't even realize the time is going by because you're just flying through levels over and over and over again. And each one is punctuated by a really fun boss fight that I think subverts a little bit of how you've been playing that level up until that point. It's a really, really masterful game. I can't not compare it to the Scott Pilgrim versus the World game, which I think was the closest analog that I had while I was playing this. It just reminded me that those levels, although I love that game, were so long. It was almost the opposite approach where they thought, oh, because, you're playing this at home, you don't need to, take out a bunch of quarters and throw them on the machine. We can just make this level as long as we want. I think that this quick bite-sized approach is actually maybe the way to do that, the way to achieve that at home.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I have two questions that I want to kind of follow up with you guys about, because I'm on the same page that it really is a joy. It really is so much fun. Did they do enough to push the game forward? Do you think there could have been a layer of sort of, RPG-esque progression that would have improved the experience or made it feel even more modern? Or, I mean, maybe it just doesn't need that at all, but I think of something like Castle Crashers, which is, again, an old game at this point, but took that kind of side-scrolling brawler thing and really said, hey, let's have, things to collect, weapon upgrades, all that kind of thing. Do you think the game could have benefited from that, or is that just a hat on a hat? Or a shell on a shell, I guess, is the better reference here.
I would say I appreciate the light level of kind of RPG upgrading you get in this game. As you continue to play the levels, you're leveling up, and as you level up, you unlock a new ability for your character. And I think that that's nice, just in terms of expanding the player space and the ways that you can express yourself while making your way through those levels. But I do kind of agree with you. I miss a little bit. I mean, not to go back to Scott Pilgrim also, but I think Castle Crashers is a really wonderful analog as well. Both of those games have a really, really, really pretty deep and rich RPG style upgrading system, because they know that you're going to be playing them over and over again with your friends.
Yeah.
And the idea of bringing your character into other people's games and things was actually a pretty core part of both of those games. And I do think that there could be a little bit of that. I also think that this game is, selling gangbusters immediately. I was just on the Switch eShop this morning. It's number 1 right now, which is, great to see. I could see some pretty heavy DLC stuff coming for this down the line. I think that this game is going to be expanded upon in a pretty major way, if I were to guess.
That'd be cool.
Yeah,
I think that'd be cool.
They had that with Streets of Rage. Certainly, the
Right.
Mr. X DLC was great. And I think this game, calls for a boss rush mode and stuff like that. I agree with Brendon that I think the light RPG-ish is the right touch. Or I agree that I like it, and then I will expand and say I think it's the right touch for this game. Turtles, Shredder's Revenge. This wasn't the game, in my opinion, to, do that stuff. This is very much a conscious callback from Tribute Games, who have proven very
reverent.
Well, yeah, they handle these games in a really smart way, right? With Streets of Rage and now with Shredder's Revenge, of kind of looking back and saying, what do people want from this franchise today? And it's not trying to do the Castlevania 64 approach, or even God of War 2018. Maybe that's another Turtles game as the franchise, as the IP continues to remain popular and someone reinvents it in some other way. But this is a game that's very much playing back to Turtles in Time and meant to represent those things. So I think they did the right amount of reimagining and replayability while being very true to those old games. What I would love to see in terms of DLC or tweaks or, patches or whatever, a boss rush would be great. And then some of those challenges are frustrating. I would love to see a little bit more replayability that's not just make a clean run through the level or something like that. And I don't know if it's a 100-hit combo or kind of what those things could be, but I think there's room for replayability to be finessed a little bit, apart from playing a whole level again and you get 2 minutes in and then get hit and then you reload the level.
I don't know how
But
far
again-
in you made it, but when you have a full 5-stack going, you're doing that level where you're jumping from rooftop to rooftop. One
Oh,
of the
yeah.
challenges is don't fall in between
Yes.
the rooftops. That is very difficult to do when you have 5 people beating up a bunch of enemies and the whole screen is flashing the whole time. You don't even know where the hole is.
Because everybody's doing their super constantly.
Exactly, yeah.
One thing I do want to mention about supers too is I love that evolution of using your ninja power. Whereas typically in these brawlers, you hit 2 buttons together and that takes a little bit of your health. And Streets of Rage 4 did an interesting thing where it takes your health, but then you can earn it back if you don't get hit. Here, you have it all the time and you have to reload it, and you reload it by not getting hit, or you can do your taunt or whatever that is. And I think that's a cool evolution of letting letting Cyclops shoot his optic blast, let Wolverine use his claws, and this lets the turtles do their cool moves without punishing them. It's just a delight. My only real nit about the game as it exists is I found the last boss fight to be underwhelming. I thought so many of the others were fun, really fun up until that point. I loved the last boss. Again, the inclusion of all the characters across the franchise is fantastic. But as the fight itself, it felt a little underwhelming to me.
I read a tweet. I retweeted this week that kind of blew my mind, because here I was thinking myself the only one, and I guess I'm just a cliche. The tweet said something along the lines of, if you're over 35, you played through all of Shredder's Revenge with Donatello first. And I thought I was the only one that loved Donatello, but evidently everybody loves Donatello. But I thought Donatello was like my little personal, counterculture. Like, everybody loves Leonardo and Michelangelo is cool, nunchucks. I want the guy with the boring bow.
The longest reach. The longest
reach. But
he has the longest reach. He's
stick
purple.
that into the guy, pick it up over your head, swing him around, throw him. That was what I loved as a kid. But as a kid, I thought, hey, I'm the only kid that I'll always jump in on Donatello. Everybody, that's the empty one. Everybody wants Raphael's cool. What are those things called? Size.
Yeah.
I'm learning that I'm over 35 at heart, I guess. That was exactly what I did as soon as I started as well.
April's my favorite character so far that I've played.
The new
I like
ones are
Casey
great.
Jones. I really like
really
April
cool.
O'Neil's like mix of speed and a little bit of range when she pulls out the camera on the tripod.
So fun.
It's fantastic.
Anyway, TMNT Shredder's Revenge. It's on Game Pass. It's so good. So good. It's on everything, really. But, if you are a Game Pass subscriber, you've already got it. But there's another game that came out this week. I have been itching to play. I'm really curious about it. I just haven't had a chance. It's Father's Day weekend. I just haven't had a chance to jump into Neon White. But Brendon, you have been playing that.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Man, what a week. At least on my end, I picked up Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the Nintendo Switch as well. What a week for the Nintendo Switch, I should say. Just so many, really too many games bumper, whatever.
Hang on. You got to warn me if you're going to do that.
Sorry. I listen to the show a lot.
Yeah, we did it, everybody.
I download literally 5 different things for the Nintendo Switch this week. One of them being Neon White, and I was really torn between Turtles and Neon White because both of them have this very strong, almost arcadey, I can't put this down once I start playing energy to it. Neon White, for those of you who don't know, it's a first-person platforming game, which already sounds like it could be a nightmare on anything but PC. But the whole idea is that you and a bunch of other assassins are essentially plucked from hell by God to kill demons who have escaped into heaven. And the idea is that you're making your way through these levels as quickly as possible, platforming and making your way around. You can pick up a gun and shoot the gun, but every kind of gun also has a discard ability where if you throw the gun on the ground, it will do a new thing. So a pistol, for example, just shoots like a pistol, but if you throw it on the ground, it essentially lets you launch yourself into the air. So if you jump and throw your pistol on the ground, you can't shoot it anymore, but now you can double jump, things like that. So
Cool.
What you end up with in this game is an almost like Persona-esque RPG when you're not in game and doing, making your way through these levels, and almost like an early Tony Hawk, I'm trying to get all the skate letters in one, combo kind of situation where you need to make your way through these levels as quickly as possible. It's almost like puzzle solving in a way. This is a game that once you start playing and you lock into it, you really can't stop. It's really aided by maybe the best video game soundtrack I've heard this year from an artist named Machine Girl, which is available on Bandcamp and Spotify and all the places that you would listen to music already. So maybe just go check that out also on the side. I was, kind of iffy about this game because I feel like a lot of the early video coverage I saw of it, I think it launched in an indie world at one point. It made it look almost like it was a deck building card game.
Right.
I wasn't really super tuned into the idea that it's not really about collecting cards. You're just picking up different kinds of guns, and they lay them out for you in a way where you are shooting and discarding and using their abilities so quickly that it's not really about building a deck. It's just about figuring out the way the level designers want you to lock into that specific platforming segment. It is stellar. It like immediately rocketed towards the top of my list for the year. I can't speak highly enough of this game.
I'm so excited to play this one. I really wanted to carve out time. TMNT kept taking all my time, and then I had other stuff going on, but I have been itching to play this game since it was first announced. It just looks so cool. My biggest question to you about it is, you talk about how, locking into sort of how to get through a level, how the game designers intended it. Does it feel like there is one solution, or do you have that kind of ability to improvise and figure out your own path?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. So every level, when you finish it, ends with a rating system: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum level. And as you continue to make your way up those levels, up those rankings for each level, they will give you a hint as to how to make it through the optimal way. I guess actually the way the level designers intended it. And if you can make your way through it that way, you'll see these like floating icons that you kind of hit and try and hit as you're making your way through. If you can do that, you will essentially get a guaranteed platinum rank on that level. But what I've already seen online, and I feel like what the game is really built for, is for people breaking that, for people figuring out new, interesting ways of speedrunning these levels. There's a global leaderboard that unlocks if you get a platinum rank on a level, so you can see how you fare against everybody else. There's a also friend leaderboard, which has been the main reason I have been flying through this game. It's just like, I gotta beat my friends. I gotta beat my friends at every single level, and I sure have. Let me tell you both. Beaten my friends at every single level so far. I just can't put it down. So I do think it's a little bit of a give and take, where I have found, in terms of games that are trying to do first-person platforming, especially with a controller, I usually find that to be really cumbersome and really kind of tiring in a way to try and figure out the intended way of playing these games. Neon White is so well crafted that it's never really a question how you're supposed to make it through a level. And I think that almost subconscious traversal is like the thing that locks you into playing this game for much longer than you anticipate when you sit down.
Man, I think I will be probably talking about this one next week, because I'm very excited to check it out. Neon White is what it's called. Brendon is very high on it. Yeah. Looks very cool.
It's by the creator of Donut County also, which is the biggest swerve ever.
Yeah, talk about a change of pace in your next game. My goodness. But what else is on your playlist, Brendon?
Yeah, I think one of the more interesting games, and I feel like this is a thing that you two in particular would love to talk about, is a game called Poinpy, which got released recently during the Netflix live stream event. It is a Netflix game.
Let's just say again, it's Poinpy. Poinpy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Poinpy. It's by the creator of Downwell, Ojiro Fumoto. I have been waiting for his follow-up game ever since Downwell came out. I think that was like 2015, I want to say, that game dropped. And I was not really anticipating picking up really any Netflix games. They have a very interesting system where you download the game for free on your device, iOS or Android, and then you have to log in through Netflix if you want to play. But seeing a new game from the creator of Downwell was just kind of like an immediate pickup for me. Maybe surprisingly, you're not going down a well this time. Dear listener, you're going up a well.
Whoa!
Can you believe
we
it?
were saying the Donut County team was doing something different. What?
Yeah, pretty wild. This game just involves you as a cute little cartoon dinosaur with a big sledgehammer, making your way up a well by kind of like aiming and flicking yourself up and bouncing off of walls. There's a big, scary monster below you that demands fruit juice, and you need to pick up as many fruits as you can, the specific fruits that the big monster wants to drink. And you have to, without landing, pick up all these fruits and then smash them on the ground with your big hammer and then feed the big monster. It is a game that handles progression so well. If you make your way from one level to the other, you don't have to start from the beginning every single time. You start from whatever level you have made it to. So you have this constant sense of, I am making my way through this game. I have not finished it yet, but I've talked to many people who have, and they say that the end is really wonderful, and you do unlock like a free play mode where you can just kind of play forever and kind of score chase your way up. I really love Downwell. That was one of my favorite mobile games maybe ever. And this game just really feels like knocking it out of the park a second time in a row, which is pretty remarkable, I think, to do the same thing twice.
It's really cool. Point P again is what it's called, and I just want to spell it out for folks listening because it's a little tricky, right? You need a Netflix subscription.
Yes.
And then you go to the mobile app for Netflix. You log in there, and then you can search for Poinpy, Poinpy, and then you can download it from inside the Netflix app on your phone.
And on iOS, you can just download it from the App Store separately. They've listed all their games also separately on the App Store, so you have to download them and then log in through Netflix in the app as well.
All right.
Yeah.
I am doing this. This looks really cool. I'm checking out some video here. This looks really cool. Poinpy, and again, I have a Netflix subscription, so I already own it.
This is kind of the thing. I'm very interested in Netflix's approach to video games. I feel like, the Netflix of games has always kind of been hovering in the ether of things that we've all been talking about for years and years. And it's funny that the Netflix of games is just like releasing apps on the App Store, as it turns out.
Right.
I've been waiting for the first one that was going to get me to pull the trigger, though, and actually download and play one of their games. And this was kind of a no-brainer for me. I'm interested to see what else is coming down the line from them. But I think strategically just getting a developer like Ojiro Fumoto and saying, hey, we'll just pay you a bunch of money to make a game is definitely going to work for me, at least.
Awesome.
That's what I find fascinating. I don't know when we'll see it, but is like the business deal side of these things. And I think also it demonstrates, which I think we have seen some of that data, that so many people do consume Netflix on their phones, because it's not like Apple Arcade where they try to floss that line of like, you can also play on your Apple TV or on your computer or on your phone. And also because of that, the controls are kind of weird because it has to work with touch or the Apple remote or a controller. It can be all of these things. And Point P is definitely a touch only. They also had the Riot Forge. I forget which game it was. A Riot game was exclusive to Netflix. And so on mobile. And so I think it's interesting to see, is this something that will bring people to Netflix or will keep people from unsubscribing from Netflix? It's like, oh man, well, I finished Stranger Things season 4. I guess I'll cancel it I have been enjoying this Upwell game.
Well, but I don't know if it'll accomplish any of that, because I am a many year Netflix subscriber, and I have seen zero front facing promotion for any of these games. Like,
you don't consume Netflix on your phone. If you go into your phone, it's it's above the fold on the updated app.
Well, maybe that's the difference. Is it's built for phone users of Netflix and phone. If obviously these are phone games, so that makes sense. But it would be nice also if maybe at some point when I was using Netflix on the myriad other devices other than my phone that I use it on, it would let me know that, hey, there's some games you could play.
Yeah. The only reason I knew about it was that I watched the Netflix live stream because I was just anticipating maybe a game announcement, while we're in the summer of games. But I'm with you, Jeff. I had not seen anything in-app for this at all, which seems counterintuitive, but I guess it does make sense if they're showing it in the app.
Well, Netflix as a company, it's baffling to me how there's things, these massive, Spider, whatever that's called, the new giant thing is like, it came out and I was like, this seems like a massive movie I've seen no promotion for.
The Russo brothers, working with Chris Evans again, and based on a popular short story. It has all the pedigree for like action blockbuster, and it's also just content. It
probably cost them $100 million, or more. Anyway.
I tried to have it cost $100 million in $1, and that extra one was just my budget. Like, they're like, "What do you do on this movie?" And I was like, "I cost $1 million."
Click.
That's what I do.
Click. Christian Spicer.
Spider. Whatever you need.
Whatever you need. I'll see it twice. Brendon, I know there's lots more on your playlist. So what else do you want to talk about?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the more interesting games that I've been playing is the demo for Fire Emblem 3 Hopes. Which launched on Switch semi-recently and launches officially. The full game releases on Switch, I think either this week or early next week. I just find this game really fascinating because it's another in the lineage of Warriors spin-offs of various IP. We've seen that a lot on the Switch recently. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, I think that was last year, Persona 5 Strikers, and now Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. Taking, other intellectual property and saying, what if it was just a Musou game? It's all Koei Tecmo developing all of these games. The interesting thing about Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes is that Koei Tecmo worked on Three Houses, which this game is like a pseudo sequel, maybe even like midquel to. I'm not really sure how to even talk about it in terms of where it falls narratively. But I have been waiting for, I would say, many years to get into one of these games. I always find this style of combat, this like, I'm going to run through, swing my sword, and watch literally 100 dudes go flying into the air.
Yeah.
Such an exhilarating idea for a video game. And so frequently they come out and I play them and it's like, oh, this like barely runs on the Switch, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Or, the story's not there, or they haven't really incorporated the IP in a way that seems interesting. The thing about Fire Emblem Three Hopes is that, unfortunately, it's hard to recommend because you really do have to have played Three Houses to like know why this is a cool story to tell. But simultaneously, it is the best I've ever seen any of these things run on the Switch. The way it incorporates Fire Emblem combat in terms of the weapon triangle, in terms of taking other characters that are in your squad and ordering them to go take other bases around the map, really feels natural. It feels like the most cohesive marriage of another game property and what Koei Tecmo is so good at, that I've seen and played on the Switch, at least. I think it's a really kind of knockout game, and I'm very excited for it to come out. I have beaten the demo and I've started it again. It's a pretty lengthy demo. It's like 6-ish hours for first 4 chapters of the game. And cool. Like Three Houses, you can choose any of the Three Houses and play alongside them, which I think is really, really, really cool. I'm a big Three Houses fan, so just want to say that on a high level. I'm definitely predisposed to love this thing, and I sure do.
That's great. That's Fire Emblem Three Hopes. It's great that these aren't just sort of palette swaps or skins of the same game over and over with new IP, that they're actually trying to incorporate what makes those IP interesting.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, the game does a very good job of incorporating what made Three Houses so cool. This idea of like it's half life sim, half battle strategy game, and the idea of a Fire Emblem game. So every single one up until this point being a turn-based strategy experience means that as you're ordering units to go fight each other, you see kind of like an animation of one character do one thing, and then the enemy kind of recoils in a way, but never the twain shall meet. Never those two character models actually hit one another. The idea of having this real-time combat actually fills in this mental gap that you were, maybe even subconsciously doing while playing other Fire Emblem games. So seeing all this action play out in real time is actually kind of almost more interesting to me than the turn-based strategy in some cases. I am very surprised at how much I like this game. I feel like my hope was that it would be good. I didn't think in a million years that it would be great.
That's awesome. So is the full game out, or is it just the demo so far?
If I recall correctly, it's either June 24th or 26th, so it's coming very soon.
Right.
And if you play the demo, carries over into the main game, so that's nice.
That's great. Fire Emblem Three Hopes. What else is on your playlist?
I got so much, you guys. A game that I really, really, really want to bring to this show is Citizen Sleeper, which I think is a game that the two of you would really, really, really love in particular. It is essentially RPG / almost like board game adapted into a video game.
I'm listening.
The idea essentially is every morning you wake up on a spaceship. You are kind of a person who's had their mind copied over to an android, and you are on this big kind of like ring, almost Halo-esque space station where people don't really like you very much. And I find that a lot of the game is just about building and forging relationships with the people on the space station, the people who can give you help in some way, shape, or form. You're living in like a storage unit. You're working on just like deconstructing spaceships and for scrap so you can sell it. But the big hook of this game, and I think the thing that's most interesting about it, is every morning you wake up and they will roll, I think it's 5 or 6 dice for you. And based on how high or low those dice are is how well you can accomplish different tasks. So if you walk into the center of, a town square that you've never been to before, and you're trying to explore that town square, you'll have to select which of those dice you want to use. So, okay, I'm going to use my 6 here because I really need to know where I can find food in this area specifically. Or I don't know if that's that important to me in this case, so I'm just going to use the 2 that I had rolled this morning as well. I find that this game and the ways in which it uses that dice roll mechanic really kind of illustrates what they're trying to go for thematically, which is this idea of, in extreme poverty scenarios, you have these situations where you wake up and sometimes it's your day and sometimes it's not. So sometimes you'll wake up and you'll get all ones and you're like, wow, today's a wash. I can't get food. I can't go to the doctor and get the medication I need for my android body to not break down, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes you wake up and you have, 5s and 6s and you're like, oh my God, a wealth today. I don't even know what I'm going to spend these dice on. The ways in which it incorporates what they're trying to do mechanically with what they're trying to do narratively, I think is a perfect cohesion. All the writing is incredible. I can't recommend this game highly enough. Definitely another best of the year indie game. It's really a stellar year for that.
And I'd add to this, it's Game Pass, which a lot of folks probably have access to it. And 2, on Into the Aether, you both did a real good job selling it. I was walking my dog, listening to it, and as the conversation continued, I was like, oh, this sounds like it could be fun. And then I took my phone out and went to the Game Pass app and I was like, I'll probably just download this so it's ready for me. This sounds like it could be a good game. And then as you guys kept talking, I was like, oh, time to text Jeff and tell him he also needs to play this game. And then I was like, oh yeah, and then by the time I got home from walking my dog, you guys had moved on to another game, and I was like, I'm going to download that game now. So it's like on my hard drive.
Yeah,
one of those games where it's like, I feel, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like Citizen Sleeper is a game that I need to like clear my desk, sit down, give an hour and a half, 2 hours to kind of get the idea of what those roles are and the rhythm. And I feel like I keep putting it off because everything else, I'm like, I'm going to jump into this. And this doesn't feel like a play for 30 minutes, get the hang of, come back to a week later. But maybe I have it wrong.
I think you're kind of right on the money there. I will say that the first time I sat down to play it, I was not mentally prepared for, I think, a lot of the heavy themes that they were going to start throwing my way. And I immediately fell headfirst into it, like down the rabbit hole. I think the writing is so strong. It reminds me a lot of Disco Elysium, especially within like the first hour to hour and a half ish, where the writing will just knock you off your feet and you're just going to be hooked from that point on. One of the best things I can say about this game, especially for people like us who do this every week, is it's pretty short as well. It's like 5 to 6 hours, which is honestly really lovely.
Again, that's Citizen Sleeper, and it is on Game Pass. Another game you could try out if you have a Game Pass subscription. So I need to do that. I have also downloaded it and not played it. But there's another game that's on Game Pass that is on your playlist. Omori? How do you pronounce that?
Yeah, I think it's Omori. I didn't realize I was on Game Pass, but that's really exciting. I've also been playing this on Switch as well. This game I've been waiting for a long time, specifically because in the last year-ish, I played a big chunk of Earthbound and actually played and finished Mother 3, which I feel like this game is definitely pulling a lot from. Omori is a very interesting title in that I feel like it plays a lot like this kind of game, a lot like an Earthbound or a Mother. It involves you and a party making your way around this kind of, I would say, very pastel adjacent, almost like imagination land, and getting into little scraps with different characters. You're fighting a little bunny in the woods, et cetera, but has this much, much, much darker undertone, I think, that people maybe not be prepared for. It's I would say adjacent to horror in sometimes. It's a game that very much is trying to sell you on this idea that it's like very cute and very fluffy. But underneath it all is a game that I would say early on, at least, and this is definitely worth knowing going in, kind of like a content warning scenario, but it's definitely dealing with major depressive themes. It's definitely about the experience of living with depression as a person who does that. I have found it to be really pretty captivating in the way that it's been able to describe and portray that on screen, and especially through game mechanics. I'm always very interested in games that are trying to express themselves through the ways in which you play. And I would say the big hook of the combat in this game is that although you can just like straight up attack all of the enemies, you also have skills that will allow you to change the temperament and the emotion of yourselves and enemies, and different characters will respond differently to the ways that they're emoting. So a character who is angry, for example, will take hits easier and will end up, taking more damage if they're attacked, but they have a higher chance of doing a crit because they're going all out. For example, a character who is sad will take more damage to their mana and their like emotional capability if they're sad. Things like that. I find it really interesting. I'm not that far into it, but I am also very interested in games that are trying to do turn-based combat in a place that is not, known for it. For example, a fantasy, like a nice little whimsical forest in the woods that I would say is not fantasy adjacent. It's a really, really interesting game. And I'm excited to get further into it. Definitely.
Again, that's Omori. And I guess it was a surprise drop for Game Pass. They didn't announce it as being a game that was coming, and it just showed up. So
yeah,
very cool. Very cool. Awesome. Tons of great recommendations there on your playlist, Brendon. Thank you for all those. Christian, I know you've been playing some stuff besides Shredder's Revenge. What else have you been playing?
Yeah, there's a few things we need to talk about this week, or that I would love to talk about this week. One, I talked about it on paid DLC, the last episode of that, as I was able to as we were recording it, as when that embargo dropped, and that's Ollie Ollie World's DLC, Void Riders. Ollie Ollie World, I think, is one of the best games of the year. It also is like Shredder's Revenge is a tonal palette cleanser from so many of the other great games of the year. But what Ollie Ollie World, I think, also does so well is it is this balance of whimsical and frustrating, because it definitely has moments where you want to throw your Steam Deck or controller or just flip it hard. You're just like, if I grip this hard enough, okay, run it again. A difficulty of Celeste style, precision platforming that requires you to get runs right, especially if you're going for certain challenges. But the flow of the levels and the way it kind of builds you into that, I think, is pretty forgiving for some of the later, harder levels. The Void Riders DLC, and I believe there's also a complete edition of the game that includes it. It unlocks, about 2/3 of the way through the game is when you have access to it. And from there, minor plot spoilers, I guess, for Ollie Ollie World. The game hints at aliens arriving. I mean, the game is so fantastical anyway that now you're going to do it. Of course, there's aliens. And Void Riders leans into that all the way. And of course, these aliens are here to shred, and they want to skate and explore the world and all these things also. And what the mechanic that it really brings to the game is that aliens are abducting things. And there's this purple, light coming down from UFO, from spacecrafts that will pull up parts of the level, or much like the purple gems that exist in the world in the main game, you need to grab to break through. And so that kind of gets you in this, I need to do a grab. I'm in the air, I'm launching. And it kind of gets you into this, rhythmic almost approach to progress through the levels as you make sure you hit a grab to break through this purple gem in the line. And with Void Riders, it has these purple beams, tractor beams, that you need to hit a grab in order to be pulled up by the tractor beam itself. So you'll have this really awesome flow going. And then if you hit and you grab a grab, it'll pull you up, which sometimes you need to do in order to get to the next platform. But sometimes that's how you get to a different route of the level, is by doing that. And that, what sounds simple, simple addition to the game of basically an anti-gravity section, of a run, provides such levity, pun intended, to an already fun and light game that it feels fresh in a way that Ollie Ollie World felt initially of the expansion of what made the prior Ollie Ollie game so much fun. It was they updated the art and they made the courses even more fantastical and all of this stuff with Ollie Ollie World. And now in Void Riders, by adding the alien technology and making the courses even more zany and having these moments where it lifts you up into the air and kind of flings you and can pick up your momentum in really cool ways as you come out of the tractor beam, really adds a freshness to the game and even more creativity to the courses that you're playing in. And it's just one of those DLC packs that I don't want to say essential per se. If you just play Ollie Ollie World, you'll have a wonderful experience, but it really does feel like it belongs in the game. Again, I'm having my cake and eating it too. Play the game Without it, you'll love it. It'll probably be one of your favorite games ever. It doesn't feel like they pulled something. It's like, and now you have a skateboard. No. But adding it back into the game, especially as the story kind of progresses and does all these loopy, zany things, and saying, yeah, of course, now here are the aliens, feels like such a nice moment. It's, it's like in the superhero movie where the superhero does the thing you've wanted to see them do the whole time. Batman's cape, Michael Keaton moment. And you're like, it's the thing that they do. Or every Zack Snyder movie where it's like, here's that page from the comic book you love. And you're like, that's from that comic book I know. Adding aliens in this alien technology in these lifts, it just feels like getting that full expression of how loopy this game can be. And especially my favorite implementation of it is when it actually pulls part of the track itself up. And so you're flying through this course and you'll see that there's no way there's too big of a gap. And then as you approach it, it's like this rail comes flying up into view. And if you hit it just right, you'll launch onto that rail and keep your line going. And when everything goes according to plan, I don't know if there's a better game in terms of making you get lost in flow that's come out since probably Tetris Effect to what Ollie Ollie World does. And then in those moments when you mess up and squeeze your controller really hard, it reloads you quickly. And so you're able to get back at it.
Very important. So that's
I'm so
Ollie
stoked to
Ollie
check that
World
out.
Void Riders.
Void Riders, which is, fantastic. The other thing that I want to talk about and spend a little bit of time on for sure, and then we'll see if we have time to get to the other stuff, is, I was provided a code for Void Riders. I should say that. I was also given access to PS Plus Premiere, which is, it's like PlayStation Now and PS Plus were combined into one service that I would call like PS Nos, I think is what I would call it. PS Nos.
Yeah.
Seems like a good,
That sound rolls right off the...
I love that. Yeah.
that's what I would call it.
That's definitely the one that we should all go with.
Thank you. It's a nice benefit. It's a nice, sometimes you can mix words a couple of different ways, but PS
Absolutely.
Nos just sounds, it flows as smoothly as a course from Void Riders is what it does. And so it is their not competitor, but it is the bigger subscription service that gives you access to games and multiplayer on the PlayStation consoles. And their catalog of games includes some PS5 games. And then depending on your tier, I have access to the highest tier, also access to PS3 games, which are only available via streaming. And then also classic games, which are PSP, PS1. Are there any PS2 games in that classic tier?
Only a few, and all of the ones, as far as I'm aware, are games that were already ported to PlayStation 4. So it's kind of like PS2 collections that have already been ported.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. And it is a really fascinating subscription service. So I want to talk about the service as a whole a little bit, and then some of the games that I've actually spent the most time with. As a service itself, if you are just a PlayStation ecosystem owner, and with the cost to upgrade your existing PlayStation Plus subscription, which I'm assuming you had PlayStation Plus because you probably played multiplayer games with your friends, and the cost to upgrade to the middle tier or extra or the highest tier Premier isn't it's not a huge ask, I think, to kind of experience this and see if you like it. I think it makes sense with the extra caveat of, are any of the PS5 games being offered games you don't have? Because there are some excellent games. Miles Morales is there. Returnal is there. Demon Souls remake is there. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is there. There's one other one too that I'm slipping. But there are some incredible PlayStation 5 games available on the service. But there are also some notable omissions that are there. Ratchet and Clank is not there. Deathloop is not there. And so it's not Game Pass. It's not just, if you want this big first party game, this is the way I would recommend you get it. Sign up for a month. It's not even what's the Ubisoft one called, Jeff? Ubisoft Plus?
No, it's
Ubisoft Play? No,
Uplay? No.
Uplay, yeah, that's what
it is. Uplay, yes.
Is it? Whatever Ubisoft is, where that I've subscribed to many a time because that the new game will be there. Far Cry 6. Well, I'll pay $20 for a month of Far Cry 6, and if I love it, I'll buy it when Ubisoft sells it to me for $5 6 months from now, or whatever it ends up being. And the way that this PlayStation Plus service, the catalog, I think is the thing that will either make it worth it to you or not, and it just happens to depend on what games you've played and are looking to play. And it's just an odd catalog that doesn't include a lot of big hits, old big hits, because it's not day and date stuff with Sony first party stuff. It is going to get Stray day and date, which is also weird because, again, it's like there's going to be a game day and date, some stuff.
Hopefully
but
the beginning of more. Hopefully that's the first of many, but we don't know.
Hopefully the beginning of more. And then even the back catalog stuff, as I didn't know off the top of my head, and I didn't have the fact sheet in front of me, as Brendon informed me of the PlayStation 2 games, where it's like there are some, but not all of them. And same with PlayStation 1. It's not as if here's a full catalog of PlayStation 1 games. And then the other thing that I think is super interesting about the service, and I think it's kind of just how the PlayStation console backend is built, is this idea of streaming and what games are available via streaming and what aren't. So I will use Assassin's Creed Valhalla as my example for that. So when you go into Assassin's Creed Valhalla, there's a PS4 and a PS5 icon next to it, which is like there's the PS4 version of the game is available, the PS5 version of the game is available. You can download them and play them. You can also stream the game. Oh, okay, so I'll go in and let's try the streaming for this current gen game. Nowhere readily apparent does it tell you that when you're streaming it, you're just going to get the PS4 version of the game. Like you look at it and it says it's a PS5 game, but you don't stream the PS5 game. You can opt to download it, but not have it as to stream. And while Ubisoft does a good job with cloud saves across their Uplay account, there's no guarantee that every game you're going to be playing that way does that. So sometimes you'll go into a game to stream it and you've created this stream instance of a PS4 game that then if you've downloaded the PS5 game would require a save transfer but you're in a cloud save. So there's all these like things that as I'm trying to explain it succinctly, I still can't explain succinctly.
You made that clear.
Which is, thank you, which is better than the way the service is explained.
Yeah.
Which I think is just so frustrating.
Well, it just feels like
these caveats.
These things are ad hoc. They're just sort of clamped on to existing structures instead of built from the ground up to be easy and smooth and make sense.
You can see the boardroom of people demanding that all these things get smashed together.
Yeah.
But I would say the rollout has felt a lot like that scene from The Office where Kevin is walking in with the big pot of baked beans or chili or whatever it is. It's just that it's taken like 8 times as long for him to drop the chili in this case. It wasn't an immediate trip and fall. It's been like, oh, is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? Oh, yeah, he did. Yeah, the beans are everywhere.
I just also want to say for the people that were yelling at me, Uplay is the front end. Ubisoft Plus is the subscription service. A distinction in search of meaning.
Yes. So obvious. It was right there. It was right there for all of us. But then I did put away my PS3, which I had just taken out, whatever this was, 2 months ago to revisit some of those games, because those games that I was playing are available via streaming, and I was restarting them. So it doesn't matter that I don't have my PS3 saves, because you're not going to get those. Those don't carry over. But this Infamous series is on there. Resistance is on there. God of War Ascension is on there. And on my good, but not, fiber internet, they were a great experience. And PS3 era games are also of the age that I'm like, is that, am I getting some artifacting because I'm playing it streaming, or is it just a PS3 game? It's not, it's a little blurry. It's blurry and brown. It's a PS3 game.
Yeah.
And so that it didn't bother me to have it that way. And so to put a bow on it, this service is fantastic. If you are a PS5 owner and there are PS5 games you want to play, then look at the other stuff. It is not an instant recommend, and that bums me out because I really want it to be. It could be. It's just so messy right now that we just don't quite get there.
It's so interesting that, there's been kind of like a hardware shortage of the PlayStation 5, and I feel like a lot of people who are still in wait trying to pick one up will eventually pick one up. And the fact that this service is there for them kind of actually puts them in a better position than like I was when I got one on launch day and had to buy all these games separately for $70 each. It's kind of nice in that way for the people who are coming to the console a little bit later.
Yeah, great point.
Well, as with all of these things, it will continue to evolve, and hopefully it will become more. But again, it just feels like these things are just built in the basement. They're not. They don't seem to be cohesive, and that's why you. That's what you wanted out of something like a Stadia, where it's like, oh, it's all built from the ground up, and then that didn't even work that great. But again, it's cobbled together because you're dealing with all these third parties. You have something like a Ubisoft Plus. It's a little smoother because you go, oh, hey, we're a company. We put all these games. We can just put them all on the service. There doesn't have to be all these
third parties. Game Pass is third. It's hard because that's the gorilla you compare it to. That's the hard part.
That's the hard part. It's got to live up to that. All right. Well, that's the games that we have been playing this week, and that's our show. We do have parting gifts coming up, so stick around for those. But Brendon Bigley, thank you so much for being here, man. It was awesome having you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. This has been dream come true adjacent, I would say.
Not actual dream. Jason, I'll take it. Tell the folks where they can keep up with you and all the cool stuff you do online.
Yeah, totally. I'm available on the internet at Brendon Bigley in most places, BrendonBigley.com as well. A beautiful Squarespace website, I should say.
There you go.
And on top of that, I also co-host Into the Aether. It's a low-key video game podcast that you can find at intothecast.online and Into the Cast on pretty much all platforms. And that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Very cool. Christian Spicer, what do you got going on this week?
I have a newsletter where I write long form about video games. You can subscribe to it for free at tinyletter.com/Christian Spicer. I also do video versions of that newsletter at some point later that you can get access to by becoming a patron of this very show here, DLC, at patreon.com/DLCpod, where you can also get a video version of what you're hearing right now and paid DLC and so many other fun, cool things. So head over there and check it out.
We're making a big push toward 1,000 patrons. I think we can get there. Patreon.com/DLCpod. A great way to make sure this show gets to continue and you get cool stuff in return. So check it out. Like Christian's been adding all kinds of cool bonus stuff as well. And we continue to try to add value to that subscription. So please do check it out. You can follow me online. I'm at Jeff Kanata, which is spelled with 2 N's and 1 T on Twitter. And I have other shows. I do the Filmcast, talking about movies and TV shows, the Filmcast, wherever you get podcasts. I do a comedy science show called We Have Concerns, also wherever you get podcasts, or at wehaveconcerns.com. And I also do, what else do I do? I don't know. Other stuff. A fan control show is going to come back pretty soon, talking about the hoops. We're doing basketball next, a fan control basketball. This has been announced. So I'm very excited. Hopefully I'll be involved in that in the fall. Hopefully that happens. I don't know if I was supposed to say when, but it's loose target dates. Fan control.
They talked about it. I've seen it.
It's going to be awesome.
It's okay.
It's going to be so awesome. Wait until you guys see what they're doing. It's so cool. Okay, let's wrap the show up now with our parting gifts.
Hey, give us a suggestion of what to do this week. Give us a parting gift. This is your parting gift.
Brendon, do you have a suggestion to help people get through their week?
Absolutely, I do. I realized I had not heard about this at all, but realized over the weekend that Netflix had acquired and then rebooted Iron Chef, which is a show that I really loved when I was like homesick in high school. And over the past couple of years, I've gotten very, very, very much into cooking. And my parting gift, my big recommendation, make an extravagant meal. Try and make something you've never made before. Sit down and watch the new Iron Chef, because there's nothing better than watching culinary wizards knock it out of the park while you also eat a thing that was difficult to make. It's a great experience.
That's awesome.
Can't recommend it highly enough.
I have one question for the reboot, having not watched it. Does it start with a man taking a big bite out of a bell pepper?
You know what? I don't want to spoil that for you, Jeff. You're just going to have to find out, but I think you're going to be very happy.
Very excited to check this out. Very important. I always baffled me as a kid. It's like, does he think it's an apple? Christian Spicer, what is your parting gift?
I mean, that Netflix Iron Chef game, mobile game, is mere moments away, right? Like it's there already. Vance Joy put out a new album in our own sweet time. Vance Joy is Australian. It's kind of singer-songwritery, folk pop. It's just happy music about, a lot of it's about love that's still in bloom, which I find very refreshing because so many love songs are about love that's lost and heartbreak. And this is often about loving people in that moment, which I think we can all use a little more of.
That's great. Vance Joy's in our own sweet time. Very cool. I am going to recommend something for my parting gift. I am shocked I'm recommending because I thought for sure it was going to be terrible. And I thought for sure I would hate it. And in fact, I didn't even think I was going to watch it. But my friend Dave Chen texted me and said, hey, did you know that the show Players on Paramount Plus is from the same team that did American Vandal? And I responded with, I did not know that, but I love American Vandal, which, hey, side parting gift. If you haven't seen American Vandal seasons 1 and 2, do not hesitate. It's genius level parody and satire.
But don't make a fancy meal and watch season 2.
No,
don't eat while you watch season 2 of Vandal.
Yeah, that's true. That's for sure. There's a lot of scatological humor in the second one. But Players is a show about esports. It's a scripted show about esports. And there's been a number of those that have been attempted, and they've all been, in my opinion, very bad. And this one I thought probably was going to be very bad as well. I watched 3 episodes last night. 4 are currently out. I watched 3 of the 4 last night, back to back. I really like this show. It's funny, but it's not the same funny as American Vandal, which is like genius level, like, as I said, satire. This is actually just a solid analysis of the kinds of personalities that are in esports. And I would venture to say this is the best show about video games that has ever been made. The best show about what it's like to be in those cultures. It nails how they talk. And it doesn't, I mean, some of the humor is like, what they're saying sounds like gibberish, because oftentimes the kinds of things we all say in our little subculture of video games sounds like gibberish to people, you know?
As opposed to running the post to get to the flank to propagate under the goalpost of the fort. You know, it's all gibberish, right?
Yeah. We attacked mid and we went boss instead of, it's like all that stuff but if you've played these games, it's about League of Legends. If you've played a League of Legends or any MOBA or even just video games in general, you get it. And it's not like, hey, listen to the nerds talk. That's not the joke at any point. It's literally authentically presenting this lifestyle. It's really good. It's really good. I'm shocked. I guess I shouldn't be because it's the team behind American Vandal. But Players on Paramount Plus, thumbs up from me.
That'll get me to subscribe, honestly.
I mean, you can get a week free and just binge it.
About both.
Yeah. The Star Trek stuff, not worth subscribing, in my opinion. That's what I subscribed for. But hey, there's got other
best
cool
video
stuff.
Game show on Paramount Plus starts with a P, not an H.
Not an H. Yeah, exactly. Okay, we got a listener-suggested parting gift. This was sent to us at dlcfeedback@gmail.com. This was sent by Trent Finney from Canada. Trent writes, last week, I went ahead and bought myself a birthday present, though my birthday isn't until July. A new keyboard, Logitech G915. It's ridiculous and awesome, and that's not why I'm writing to you. I bought the keyboard on Amazon, and it came with a trial of Amazon Prime. I started sifting through all the free stuff on Prime Video and Prime Gaming, and then I was delighted to find Prime Reading. Amazon is such a ubiquitous behemoth now that I'd actually forgotten it started as a marketplace for books. Anyhow, among the 1,000 plus books that are free to read on Prime Reading, I found a comic called Clear by former Batman writer Scott Snyder. I was instantly pulled in by this sci-fi premise. In the near future, the internet has become integrated directly into human psychology, making our eyes the screens. At the same time, a series of disasters and recessions have made people universally miserable. The economy is now dominated by the production of veils, which completely modify what people see, changing their bleak surroundings into something more palatable. The main character is a detective fighting against the illegal veil black market. The title Clear comes from the fact that he is one of the only people who choose to keep their veil clear and see the world as it really is. I don't want to spoil where the plot goes, but it was a wild ride and I highly recommend it. Keep up the good work, Trent. Thanks, Trent. Again, that is called Clear by Scott Snyder. And evidently, if you've got Amazon Prime, you've already got access to it. So great recommendation. Thank you, Trent, for sending that in. If you'd like to have your parting gift read on our show, send it to us. dlcfeedback@gmail.com is where you send those. All right. That's going to do it for this episode of DLC. Thanks again to Brendon Bigley and Christian Spicer for hanging out with me. Thanks to our musical contributors, Patrick L., Sean Madigan, and Zero Star. Our theme song was created by White Cube, which is Jason Sherry and T. Ryan Arnold.
And before we go, of course, we need to thank our Hype Train patrons, those folks who keep this show chug, 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 chewing along the track. So I'm going to do that right now. Clifton Satterfield, Taylor Wiggert, Josh Peak, Nick Strauss-Klein, Michael Stadler, Jackson, Travis, Soren Silk, Yick, Zachary White, Nate. Total sidebar. My oldest has been reading the Big Nate comic graphic novels nonstop all the time. Anyway, loves them. Loves them. Jenny, I don't have a graphic novel that my kid's reading with the name Jenny. Okay, I'm going to stop. Scott Hughes, Neil Shaw, Jimmy Radcliffe, Mitchell Ness, Jeff Luxack, Matt Bradley, Victor Valenzuela, Cheesy Bob, Hank Patton, Rob Rixman, Riley Knox, Kyle Starr, Michael S., Relentless Rex, Curtis from Louisville, Comedian, Aaron Trahan, Jason Novak, Octavian Ratsiu, Christian Bravery, Jad, Peter Olberg, Slag the Watashama Henny, Michael Buck, Mike Lombardo, the Spiceman Silencer, who worked this episode. There's zero Spiceman. The Zero Spiceman on this episode. Albert, Verhilda Dios, Jonathan, the Spiceman Forever, Shuplifer. I'm sorry to have disappointed you this episode. Stu Goss, Kevin Brazel, Ben, Dan Palmino, Malcolm King, Mark Gowland, Jonathan Putney, Will with 1L Harris, Chris Zacharias, Jonathan Talbert, Scooby Diesel, Adam Denby, Sasan, Dan Flanagan, Anthony Goulas, Andy Joyce, Matt Valdez, John Sisko. Choo, choo.
All right. That's it. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. Until then, think about what you put out into the world. Make it a better place.